Okay. I think we'll be on in a second.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
here.
okay, okay.
Yeah, we have reached critical mass too, so I
Yeah,
think
I think so. Okay, thank you everyone for coming to tonight's executive committee meeting. I just wanted to say first, thank you to everyone and reiterate, and I appreciate how many people have already signed in, 23 people, that's great. I don't think we're gonna have one next month. I just wanted to have a couple of these at the outset, just to talk about some things that have been happening. And maybe we can do this through email, or if we feel there's another one necessary, but I do really appreciate everyone taking time out and getting on. A couple of things I just want to talk, and in future, just to reiterate, you don't not every co-chair needs to show up, just somebody from your committee uh that you co-chair. And so some people hold many hats, so one person could represent sometimes three committees, which is fine. A couple of things. I just want to talk about borough board for a second. Um, Sorry about that. Um, it's very interesting. There are a lot of initiatives going forward. It's very interesting to see how issues that we're dealing with are being dealt with same, differently, not at all by other boards. I just want to talk about cannabis briefly. There are a number of boards that are very upset about what's happening and not happening at OCM. Essentially, that applications are being granted for people who are operating illegal cannabis stores. I know at our last meeting, we declined an application that covered somebody who was operating an illegal one, who was asking for a legal license. We didn't even really hear it. That is coming up in other boards. There's also a lot of discussion about enforcement, how there really isn't very much enforcement. I know we see it periodically up here, but there are a lot of other, I mean, in Community Board 1, they are completely inundated by illegal shops. And the presence of a legal one doesn't seem to be doing anything for purposes of shutting down the other one. So it's an issue that we'll keep following. I want to commend the co-chairs of Street Life who are actually going out there, and many of the rest of you who are going out there and doing sort of our own little inspections of what's happening, which I think is really important as more of them come online. The other discrepancy is I don't really think we're really getting reports out of OCM when they're actually issuing the applications. At least initially, there was a thought that what we had been doing, what we are doing, are sort of pre-applications, and that once there was an approval, they would actually come back. That is not happening at all anywhere, and no one is getting any notifications. The boards are not getting any notifications that any of these applications have actually been approved, disapproved, or what's happening. So I think, Robert's putting up the site and we actually have to go check ourselves. So anyway, that's all I want to say about that. Um, Community Board 6 approached me about perhaps putting together a task force to look at the Esplanade and trying to work together. There are going to be more discussions about that, but I just wanted to bring that up. Secondly, I just want to talk a little bit more. We're in the period now where people are reapplying for their positions on the board. We're getting new applications. The borough president's office is reviewing all of those. And they are really coming, not down on us, but they definitely want us to keep, excuse me, very close track of attendance, who's excused, who's not excused. And they are very much considering that in the application process or the reapplication process. And not only are they looking at attendance at the full board and land use meetings, but they are also very interested in attendance at the small committee meetings. And so I just wanted to use this opportunity to for the co-chairs to actually track that and make sure you're reporting. You do have a roster. Will send it out again of people who are on your committee, and please keep track of who's showing up. It's very important to the borough president that people who are appointed are actually attending meetings. And again, we are a little bit more lax than to the chagrin of some of our members. You know, in many of the other boards, you have to be in person to even be at a small committee meeting. So again, please reiterate to your members that they're supposed to be showing up. I mean, we have a little bit of a different policy than other boards in that we allow every member of the board to actually come to meetings. But if you are designated as a member of a particular committee, you should be attending those meetings. And you can go to the bylaws. I know that when Will redistributed the attendance lists, he also set out the attendance requirements. In that connection, I can't tell you how many people are sending me emails within the last 25 minutes before a full board meeting is happening, telling me I'm not coming, I'm coming by Zoom. I mean, I'll say it at a full board meeting, but since this represents a fair amount of the people who come to full board, that's not going to cut it anymore, because our meeting started late the last time because we didn't have enough people in the room to start the meeting. So as a courtesy to your other board members, we need to know what those numbers are going to be like, because if we have to request people to come in who would otherwise be participating by Zoom, or quite frankly, if we have to cancel a meeting because we're not getting enough in-person attendance, I don't want to be the person in the room who says this meeting is canceled because we don't have enough board members in the room. It's not a good look. And I don't really think I need to say more about that. If you know you're going to be out of town, I'm a very understanding person. I understand that these things happen. I don't want to be an ogre about it, but we are going to keep track, because, if you've missed 2 full board meetings or three full board meetings now, that's 100% of the meetings that you've missed. And you don't really have a lot of spare room. And there's definitely not going to be a lot of excused absences. And we usually have really good attendance, but I just want to put that out there because the borough president is watching us closely in that regard. Okay. Before we get to the district needs statements, and again, I'll say this at the full board, I was really proud of how many members of this board participated in the open dining webinar yesterday. We had quite a few members who were listening in. That's another big issue that everyone is talking about at Borough Board. And I think we're getting really prepared for that, and as best we can. Although I have to say, just to let everybody know who was on, there's a real disconnect between, it seems like, when we're going to get notifications of people putting in these applications and the amount of time we're going to have to actually consider them. Apparently, the city council didn't really take into account that we only have like a meeting once a month and what date it is. And it's actually 30 days for sidewalk cafes for us to act on an application, and then 45 for in the road apps. And if they come in on a certain date, they could entirely miss our street life meeting and or our full board meeting. And they didn't. Basically, I think we're just going to have to, I'm going to reach out to our city council people to see if that can be rectified. But in the meantime, we're just going to reach out to who our liaison is over there and see if we can put together a process, obviously working with our street life committee to see if we can put some kind of process together so that we can have a meaningful review and not miss. But, it's going to be a problem for everyone. I think the presentation, Will, is that going to be available for everybody to see, even if they're not on street life?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
sent the
right.
presentation
I
around
did,
to all
right.
50 or 48 board members. So
Okay.
if you look in your inbox, well, they also were all invited to the webinar, and there will be a second webinar. I'm not sure exactly how the invite's going to come out, but there will be another webinar for those who weren't able to attend this one.
Just it's kind of fascinating, but it's going to be a 4-year revocable consent. So these initial approvals are going to be very important. It's 4 years. It's $2,000 for the 4 years. You can 2,500. You can do the math. It's not very expensive to get one of these use of the road, and so I think it's going to be really important to take a look at these at the get-go. Okay. I didn't really want to get to that much jump. Next topic. Oh, I'm sorry. Abraham, do you want to say something about what we just talked about, or?
Yeah, just on the given the sidewalk, what we've done in the past when we had the running up against the 30 days, and it wasn't going to be enough time for the full board, we'd have resolutions sent from the committee resolution to make sure that we were heard. So we could do that. The only with the tight window, I guess, if someone really wanted to game the system and knew, they could pick a 31-day month
Exactly.
meeting. That's a lot of effort, but yes, it could be done. But otherwise, we'd either be committee or full board.
Yeah. Alita, did you have a comment? Thank you, Abraham. You're still muted.
I don't see her. I see now.
I'm here. I only wanted to ask about what happens in August.
Yeah, well, they're supposed to be done by August. Isn't that the case?
No, that's the deadline to apply. Abraham, if you want to speak to it, but they have until August to apply, and
Yes.
then they have until November to basically rectify.
The shed.
Yeah, so they have 30 days from when they apply. The sooner of 30 days or November 3rd to take down the sheds. With regards to August, Street Life has always historically met in August because of that reason, and we will continue to do so. So sorry for Street Life committee members.
Yeah. Well, I think, hopefully we get a good liaison and we can work out some schedule that works for everyone, and gives us an opportunity to be heard. If there is some negative, there is going to be a public hearing. So only in the case of the roadway dining would we have a chance, if we miss the deadline, to come in at the public hearing and then talk then. But not every application is going to be a public hearing. So it's a little bit wackadoo, but anyway. Okay, let's move on to the district needs statement. And I'm going to throw this over to Will because he can give more detail. But what we're really asking for is more committee input into the district needs statement. I can tell you that at Borough Board, a lot of time is spent by individual committees in putting together the preparation for the statement. I'm sure that Felice and the Budget Committee would very much appreciate that. And Felice, feel free to chime in here. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, so for those who aren't very familiar with our district needs statement, though I imagine most of all of you are, it is broken out into different sections. So the goal should always be that you, as the committee co-chairs of your relevant subject matter area, are the experts who should be then relaying to the budget committee what it is that the priorities should be and continue to be for your subject matter area. That involves getting the agency that you're sort of responsible for, or maybe agencies, plural, to give you ideas for, budget priorities for our district. A good example, Parks Committee, if Lisa's unmuted too, so she can also speak to this. They asked the Parks Department to come and tell them every year, what priorities the Parks Department would have us champion to the city budget for, inclusion in our budget, needs. And so basically, the district needs statement is due Halloween essentially every year, but it means that for the budget committee to have their public hearings on the district needs statement, they really need to know what the committee's view of the relevant sections are before sort of our summer break. So it means that, as we go into late spring, you should be having discussions within your committees about what it is that we should be prioritizing for that next fall in our discussion for our district needs statement. So we just want to get this on everybody's radar now as we're in March, so that as you're looking at your April, May, June, July agendas, you can start, inviting agencies, you can start inviting experts who are local stakeholders who may want you to champion whatever their projects are in the district that have an impact for our parks, our schools, our esplanade, our roadways, and then start to coalesce around something, and we'll send around the district needs statement and all the narrative sections, and going through those narrative sections to make sure all of the statistics are still relevant and valid. All of the topics that we bring up in those narratives are still issues that need to be championed, or maybe they're projects that have been completed. We've had some major exciting projects that were completed over the last couple of years. Maybe those need to be removed or amended. The narrative around those need to be updated. So, Felice, did I miss anything that you would?
I think that was terrific. Thank you, Will. I think the more specific, we sat down with the Department of City Planning this year, and they went through our asks and what the kind of agency responses were. And the advice they provided is the more specific we can be, the better it is for each agency to respond. So if we want additional enforcement in an area, we should try to be specific about whose responsibility it is. If we want more affordable housing, it would be helpful if we could point to specific programs or recommendations so that it could be more tangible. There are policy things, and it is as a policy we want more affordable housing, but we could be more specific about how we define affordable housing, or what tax incentive programs we think might be, or other HPD related things, or if we want any of the sorts of things that we're asking for. The more specific that we can be and the more data that we can provide, the more likely it is that we'll get a positive, or at least be able to hold the city's feet to the fire on what our actual district needs are. And I'll add that there are two buckets that we're asking for. One are expense priorities, and one are capital. And capital is what is it? Anything that will last more than 5 years, has a 5-year useful life, is considered capital. So those are the sorts of items that we look for, but I encourage people to review it with their committees in the spring. As Will and Valerie said, it will make our district needs statement much more effective. And I think we'll get a better response from city agencies.
Yeah. I mean, probably unlikely in this budget year but if we have a specific ask for a specific program and there's some money floating around, and the specificity is there, and then they can actually match up some remaining funding to a specific request that we have for our district. Michelle, do you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to suggest, every city agency has internal rules that are different than things that were legislated. And sometimes when we're asking for changes within an agency or their attention to certain things, if we know what their internal rules are, we may be able to have influence on well, just because we know what they are, and also asking for changes where relevant. I know that was true with the vendor committee. There's legislation on vendors, but the vendor committee, and this is true for all agencies, they have inside rules that they determine for themselves. And we have had some influence in changing an internal rule where we knew it wasn't applicable. And that may be for budget or anything else. I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions or comments about this? I mean, we can send around the district needs statement from last year, so you can use that as sort of the basis of what you're asking for, of what you want to put together. Felice, do you have like a tentative deadline, like you'd like to get all of these back so we can have people working towards them? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's quite right. I mean, I'd like to be able to have substantive conversations in early September, and I think our budget committee is scheduled to meet September 3rd. But to a certain extent, a lot of us are just kind of poking around in the dark because we've talked about, you know, the need for additional school seats for years, and it's always been a priority. But if you actually look through the School Construction Authority's data, it says that we don't need additional school seats, and, you know, and population's declining. So to the extent that we can turn around and say, well, here are our school needs. Maybe it's not additional elementary school space. It's actually improved accessibility, a new playground, you know, whatever it is that we can be specific about would be helpful. And to come to that September 3rd meeting with really some specific information would make the whole process much better.
Well, it sounds like, though, if committees could get drafts together, that's something that they could submit to your committee, and maybe you guys could do sort of an edit or further information and give them feedback on, so that in September you're really ready to rock and roll on it. And I think that would be helpful as well.
And if I could just add, the one other thing we do is there's a draft survey that is on the city planning's website that we've modified a little and sent out last year to get community input. So to the extent that you can also at your meetings or send it around to your contacts, so that we can get a broader feedback from the community at large on what their priorities are.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, I think we raised the priority of public safety because that was something that was really commonly listed in that survey, but I think we got like 400 responses out of how many people live in this district?
Yeah, I think, to your credit, I think that was up from the prior year. But when do we usually send that out?
I think
Usually
we could send it out
July,
earlier.
August.
Yeah, I mean, is it possible to send it? I know we're already in April for all intents and purposes. Is it possible to send it out earlier, because people do leave? And if we could start getting it out earlier, even if it's the beginning, you know, end of May, beginning of June, before people really leave, or, you know, or if there are fewer people, some of us never leave, but fewer, you know, then, you know, when they come back in September, young families are all about getting their kids ready for school, et cetera. They're filling out a lot of other forms and things. So we may get more people if we try to send it out a little bit earlier than we usually do.
And maybe if we could try to get like a patch article
Okay.
talking about the survey and
That would be
encouraging people to
great. I
respond.
mean, we can definitely do that. Patch is always asking us what we're doing. So, I mean, maybe we could even, if we had it ready, and we could do that, I don't know, mid-May. Does that sound like something we can shoot for? And then they can put it in the patch as well. That might be helpful. That's a great idea. Okay. All right. Enough about district needs for now. I'm sure everyone's already thinking about it. The last real topic I wanted to discuss is there's always a request for meeting dates. What we would like you all to consider, and I'm not talking about committees like landmarks or street life or transportation, but other committees, maybe sharing, we'll have a specified meeting date that will be shared by several committees who don't need to meet all the time. Will and I feel like some people are always scrambling. They're afraid that they're going to lose their meeting date. And so they're scheduling meetings that maybe they don't need. And so what I'd like for you guys to do is talk amongst your co-chairs and see if you would be willing to be in the rotation for the what we're tentatively calling the quarterly meeting date. Figure out how many meetings you might want during a quarter, and then we can alternate meetings. That would also free us up that if something came up for your committee, and out of whether it's, you know, something coming out of state, local, whatever it is, and you had, you know, you had speakers and an agenda or something you wanted to do, that would also leave some dates open that we could put you on the board or on the next month for a scheduled meeting. I just feel like everyone feels like they have to have a meeting, and we have enough meetings. There are plenty of meetings that people can attend and participate in. And so that's not an issue. But constantly people are coming back and saying, you know, they're afraid to lose their meeting date, et cetera. So I'm not saying that I'm asking for volunteers, but I do want you to seriously think about whether your committee needs to have a monthly meeting or would be willing to share this sort of revolving quarterly meeting date. I mean, if you feel you need 2 meetings in a quarter, maybe we have alternate, but we want to see first how many committees are interested in sharing the date, and then we can go from there. So if you can think about that in the next in the next 2 weeks, that would be fantastic. That's really all I want to say, except you guys really need to get your minutes in. You're not, you know, you can think about it this way. There are certain committees who meet right before full board, and they are special cases in terms of the first of all, they get their minutes in within 24 hours of the meeting, which is amazing because they're heavy agenda meetings. Thank you, David Halpern and Jane Parshall. But there are tons of meetings that are happening where there's just so much lag time, and they all have to be reviewed by, you know, 2 people. So if 10 different meeting minutes come in, that's a lot to get done, and it really doesn't give us a lot of time to post the minutes for the public to read and for other committee members to meet. And so it again takes away from the smooth process of the full board. So I just want to reiterate again, it's really important for you to get these minutes done. Again, they do not have to be transcripts of the meeting, and we're trying to streamline that. So, you know, put you when your topic changing, you know, just this topic started at, you know, 6:45, and here's the discussion. If people want to go back and they want to look at it more in depth and see who said what, where, when, they can do that, but they know where to go. And it just will make it easier for everyone. And I mean, obviously, if you have a resolution, that needs to get incorporated. But if you're giving minutes, you know, again, try to keep it to a page and a half, depending upon how long the meeting is. I understand that some of them go long, and that, you know, that's good. But we need to get them in more promptly. And again, don't be afraid to have one of your standing members do the minutes one time. It'll be good for them. You know, maybe they too will become a chair, and or, you know, again, it's not necessary that the minutes be done by the co-chairs. That's all I have to say. That's like a half an hour. If anybody has a topic they want to bring up, I don't think we need to have a meeting next month. Is there anything that anybody wants to bring up? Alita?
Thanks, Valerie. I'm wondering if it's possible to find out the votes of borough board members on these issues that you raised there, or that they're voting on, and also the any vote by the borough president on particular issues.
Well, when you say the vote by the borough president,
if there's well, I guess the borough president doesn't really matter because he's not voting there, but for the borough board, if there have been board votes on topics like I don't know, some borough, I can't think of it right now, some borough-wide issue or something that we're all looking at. Maybe
Okay.
it might be interesting to see what they're thinking.
Okay, all right. I mean, we haven't had many borough wide votes since I've been on. But one that was City of Yes. And I can ask them for a copy of that and we could circulate it, I believe. I have to double check. The only other thing I wanted to raise in case, just one last thing. If you have any questions about board procedure that you think you would like us to funnel to the general counsel or just questions about general things, please feel free to send them to us. There's a new general counsel at the Borough President's office, Peter Torrey. He's been super responsive with respect to a number of questions that we have. Ty?
Thank you. Hi. Okay, so here is, I'm gonna put where's my Rules and Bylaws Committee co-chair? He's on here somewhere. Hi, Chuck. So I just want to be clear about what the Borough President's office communicated about attendance, because it's my understanding that per our bylaws for our community board, it is at the chair's discretion to recommend removal of a board member based on what we have in the bylaws counts as unexcused absences. And so it's very clear. It's like Article 1 on attendance, okay? And so Marco, you're shaking your head, but I'm literally looking at the bylaws. So give me a second, okay? Because it's in the bylaws. We have very clear explanations of exactly what constitutes unexcused absences and excused absence and how attendance is to be counted, right? Pursuant to Article 5, Section B2 of the Charter, okay? Separate from that, and then it is at the board chairperson's discretion to recommend a removal of a board member. It sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Valerie, that the communication that the Borough President's office has made is that they have not seen board chairs at their discretion very often recommend removal based on attendance. Is that correct?
No, much to my surprise, there are lots of board members who are removed from other boards.
Well, it sounds like they're saying this board has not had a chair that has actually done that. And so now you're up and you're probably going to have to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, they're more asking about the attendance, not for me to remove anybody, but in the context of people reapplying.
But we take meticulous notes on who attends every meeting and every committee meeting.
Can I just
Sure.
Jump in. And then you go check the second part to my question was that it was unclear to me whether, because it is then the responsibility of the borough president as they are looking at people who are being reappointed to look at the attendance record. So I can't tell if they have an issue with this, that we're not removing people, or if they feel like we have bad record keeping, because I think we have great record keeping of attendance. Now I'll shut up.
Go ahead, Chuck.
No, just a little historical perspective. The attendance at our board meetings over the past number of years has been much better than it was previously. And David Liston, when he was board chair, did initiate removal of a board member. And it never came to pass because the board member resigned as a result of it. But I think what I thought you were saying, Valerie, is that the borough president wants to make sure that we have accurate attendance because he wants to use that for, when he's looking at reappointments, and he's going to pay close attention to that, which they have generally done. But I think it's fair to say that in the past, at least 10 years or more, I think our attendance has been much better. I mean, we get over 40 board members, much more than we ever did back, say, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, this is not directed towards anybody. This was not CB8. This was a general, just make sure that you're keeping track, which we are. And since we're in the reappointment process right now, and apparently, to Chuck's point, since our attendance is so good, I never suspected that was not the case in other boards throughout Manhattan. But apparently, there are some people who get appointed, never show up to a meeting, and aren't removed, aren't recommended for removal, or or take, and it becomes a real issue. So,
Got it. I think, look, I bring it up not to point anyone out, but the reality is you guys shared, I can't remember if it was Will or you, Valerie, that shared a spreadsheet. And actually, I get it, Chuck. I appreciate the perspective, but there are definitely board members on our board who have a history of not attending meetings, and they've gone beyond the amount that is in, so I'm not sure. Like, we have good record keeping, but I counted at least 4 or 5 people on our board who have lots of unexcused absences above the level we've determined is acceptable. So,
I mean, we're gonna look at it, and now is the time to, I guess we can make a recommendation. We can't remove the person, but we could, I could make a recommendation, and in the past, people haven't done anything about it. I mean, literally, I've been the chair for 2 months, so I feel kind of reluctant to.
totally, and I'm not suggesting it.
No, I know that, but
yeah.
that's why I'm sort of saying fair warning, I think people, there are tons of people who want to get on this board, and we should, welcome those people. And so if people aren't going to take this seriously, and 99.9% of people on this board are, it's the people who, never showed up, that you didn't even know they weren't there because you didn't even know what they looked like to begin with. So, I appreciate that. And as I said, if you've missed 2 meetings and you've been not excused, you've missed 95% of the meetings already. So you've hit your two limit, and that means you have to attend every other meeting. So, look, life happens. This is a voluntary appointment. I am look, everybody else is doing it, and so everybody else should. And if you're not keeping your commitment, you're also letting your other community board members down, because they are keeping their commitment as well. So it's not only a fiduciary responsibility to the community, it's also to everybody else who's expecting you to show up and do what you said you were going to do.
By the way, Valerie, the board can remove a member on your
Right.
you have to institute the process, but the board itself can remove
Yes.
the member if they if they're certain amount of absences. It's never actually happened, but I said we came close in one instance.
Yeah. I would hope that it wouldn't come to that, if that was the case. Okay, thank you for letting us flesh that out. Anybody with anything else, or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
Just before you before you adjourn, just to flesh that out one little bit more, is committee co-chairs, as you guys draft your minutes, you should be marking who is excused and who is unexcused in the absences for your minutes. We don't know who you've given an excused absence to at the staff level. Valerie doesn't often know, who's reached out to say that they ask for an excused absence from the committee. So you guys should be marking those up in your minutes as you turn those in too. Now that's it.
Okay. All right. Also, we're going to be sending around, I'll make another, since we do have 30 people on, so that's a fair amount of our board members. We're also going to be sending around your bios in anticipation. We're going to have some new members coming. I would really like to be able to put together a directory of who everybody is. So everybody, new people, old people, medium people, can see, who's on the board and put it all together. So I don't want people to rush around. So I think we'll be sending out in the next couple of weeks your bio to update, or just tell us you don't want to update it, leave it the way it is, so we can put something together and make it. And this will only be shared amongst board members. Ed?
Ed, yeah, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I'll promote the task force meeting at 6:30 in case anybody has a free night and wants to go to another meeting. Look for